Hi everyone, Kumar Datatran here with Agile Meridian. And in this Agile Short, we're going to continue our theme on the Scrum competencies. And today we're going to be talking about the competency. Let me switch let me just get rid of this thing so you can see us better. The competency we're going to be talking about is developing people and teams. And this is an interesting competency because, it's one of my favorite because for me, it's all about the human element of when you talk about Scrum and Agile, it's about the humans, the people that are on teams and how to make their environment as rich and sustaining as possible so they can do the best that they can do. And so in this competency, there's 5 focus areas that scrum.org talks about: self-managing teams, facilitation, leadership styles, coaching, mentoring, and teaching. And so it's all about sort of, creating an environment where the people on the teams have what they need to do the best job they can do, creating the environment for their success. So maybe what we'll do is we'll start with self-managing teams. Mike, what comes to mind when you hear that phrase, self-managing teams?
It's interesting. I'm actually currently working with several engagements where I'm coaching a non-IT leadership group. We have a group locally where I'm at where we are replacing what would be normally traditionally an org chart position. Such as like a group manager or an area manager for a large facility, and we're replacing that with directly responsible individuals and a self-managed team. These subject matter experts from different parts of the organization and different parts of the facility, and it's having a big effect. It's having a big impact, and it's interesting how where this can be applied, and it's very much a Scrum topic. It can be applied to a lot of places. It can be applied outside of a Scrum actual framework. The value in it, to your point earlier, Kumar, was that it's really about the people, and it's about taking these people and what they're finding. The interesting thing that they're finding is that by having this group of self-managed subject matter experts that cover the gamut of the entire facility and their organization, they are able to respond to things much quicker. They're able to see things happen or predict potential challenges a lot faster because they're closer to the work. They're closer to what's going on, and they've now built this network and communication network and a web of interactivity that they're using to go ahead and react and be proactive towards a lot of things. They've done a lot of continuous improvement activities already this year, and it's taken several months, so it's moved very, very quickly.
That's pretty interesting. Jolly, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and the biggest thing about managing teams, as the Scrum guide says it, is that nobody tells them what to do, right? Nobody's telling the team what to do, and that's a huge change. If that is indeed what happens. It doesn't happen that way all the time, but if that is indeed what happens, it's a huge change for the team because they now have to figure out what to do, how to do it, and who is doing it, right? Yeah. And they have always been used to somebody telling them that. And that human element of change is big, and the leadership has to show the way. They have to lead by example and sustain it by not interfering when the going gets rough.
That's exactly what's happened actually at this location where they're at, and they're successful because they have that air cover, because they have that leadership buy-in, and the leadership at the organization is very much wanting this, and they're really supporting it to grow.
Yeah, and I think one of the key skills to making this happen is our next focus area, which is facilitation, which the team has to master within themselves. So, and when we normally hear about facilitation, we think about the ceremonies, the Scrum events, so to speak, right? The sprint, the planning, the stand-up, so on and so forth. But it's not just that. It is also about facilitating within the where it was always about being told what to do. Now you have to facilitate conversations that help them figure out the who will do it, the what is going to be done, and when will that happen. And those facilitating those conversations within the group is actually a much tougher skill than any of the Scrum events itself, because those are very rich, prescribed in some way, whether we like it or not. I mean, those are prescribed, but the unprescribed ones, where you have to actually engage with each other and produce results and a way forward. Sometimes it's a way to do things. Sometimes it's a way on how the team behaves, and that is a much bigger skill than the Scrum events itself. Right.
Yeah, I agree. Facilitation, I mean, is one of my favorite topics, and that's because I think it's often an overlooked skill, in the industry. Forget Agile, just in general. I don't know how many meetings I've been to where the facilitation has been pretty poor. There's been no facilitation. It's just there's not even an agenda, and so. It's so important to have good facilitation skills that lead to strong self-managing teams, self-organizing teams, and the two are really inextricably. I always have a hard time saying that word. They're so linked together, right? So facilitation allows these things to happen in a way that that's beneficial for the whole team. I think our next focus area is really, I wanted to mention one shameless plug, and that is about before we go on to the next topic, that's about our course, our facilitation course, which we have, I think, scheduled next week, actually. It's gotten really good reviews. And in this course, the focus is really about the skill building of facilitation, right? So yes, we do talk about the Agile ceremonies, the planning, and so on and so forth, and give lots of tools and tips and techniques to make those more effective. But it's also about facilitation from a more general perspective. Like, how do you facilitate a meeting? What are some tips and tricks to making sure the meeting ends with a good outcome? So yeah, do check that out. I think the early bird is still going on. All right, so on to the next one, the next topic, which is really on leadership styles, right? So how does this impact what's our focus area here? Our teams, right? Leadership styles. What sort of styles lend themselves to developing people in teams? And for me, it's sort of the more democratic style of leadership, the more servant leadership style that allows teams to flourish, right? So how do teams and people, humans, to your point, Jolly, earlier, it's a big change for them, right? Being order takers for most of people's careers, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you get to decide what to do. Well, how does that happen? That transition isn't immediate, and so leaders. To your point earlier, Mike, when you were talking about the leaders in the company that you're supporting, requires a certain amount of air cover and understanding of what a leader's role is. If a leader, the style that they typically employ is transactional or maybe more authoritative, then it's really adopting a different style of leadership, democratic coaching style of leadership, a servant style of leadership, where you're nurturing people to go through that change. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I would agree. And for folks that aren't used to or have experience with managing or taking on the ownership of facilitating and of having a self-managed team, they have no reference point, right? So when they look at it, they're going to say, well, what do I emulate? What do I do with this? I've never seen this before. Those leaders, and I know the three of us have done this, coaching those leaders, those air cover leaders that are helping to build the environment that's going to support a self-managed team, helping to coach them on how to take the components of what they do and show through practice, what does it mean to help teams and help build environments that allow for self leadership and self management of both things and of relationships of the people. And I think that goes a long way. And sometimes, to your point, you don't just hand it over. If you do, there's no reference point. They have nothing to go to. So they struggle a lot, and there's a high propensity to maybe go back to the way it was because there's not that instant success. And you want to help the leaders understand, hey, if you can get some quick wins by showing them and helping them to move forward, you're going to see they're going to build their confidence level much faster, and you're going to see the transition happen much more naturally. And there's going to be a pull on this versus you kind of pushing this down if it's something you desire as a leader.
Yeah, and leadership styles are situational, right? So in the beginning of a transition to a more agile way of working, leaders may need to take a different approach to their leadership, right? So maybe it's still they're sort of moving towards servant leadership or democratic styles of leadership. But depending on the situation, if the people are new or they're new to the organization or they're new to just Agile or Scrum, they need to sort of establish that reference point to to what you mentioned before.
Well, it's interesting because this leads into our next topic, which is coaching and mentoring, right? So there's the coaching and mentoring of helping the organizational leadership that is going to be providing the air cover and that support and helping to build the environment. There's the coaching and mentoring to help them understand, if they don't already, if they haven't had experience with this, even though they desire it, to make sure that they're on the right track and they're going to be able to do the right thing. And then there's that leadership's coaching and mentoring of the individuals that are now taking on the mantle of a self-managed team, which in most cases is a very new thing. Very few people that we've worked with have experienced this before they get an opportunity to do it for the first time in their real jobs. And then that starts to trickle down, right? You start to get that kind of spreading effect where now you've got a few self-managed teams. They're helping their peers, and you start to get that pull. That's when as a leader, your coaching and mentoring environment is working well. You're doing a nice job coaching and mentoring those individual teams and the individuals on how to come up on this. And it's translating to the point where now peers in these self-managed teams are starting to help each other and starting to coach and mentor each other on good facilitation skills. What kind of leadership styles work for you and you're part of the organization, right? Or your natural leadership style. How do you incorporate that into a self-managed team?
Yeah.
What do you think, Jolly?
Yeah, a couple of big things that leaders in the teams have trouble when they switch to this mode. One is they have always been used to telling people what to do. So they find it very difficult to kind of stay back and actually see the teams working. Second thing is they find it very difficult at the slightest hint of failure. When something begins to fail, they immediately feel the urge to jump in and help. And they have to help the team get out of that situation. And that's what they've always been trained to do. They have always been fixers. They have always been people who jump in and save the day for the company. And that's how they got promoted, right? And that's how they started that leadership. And most of them, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them have been that way. And they find it difficult to kind of step back and say, let the team figure this out. They may fail. I will prevent their catastrophic failure, but I am not going to let them fail where they can learn. Right. So that is one of the things that they find it really, really difficult. So most of the time when I coach these leaders, I tell them, when you feel the urge to make a statement, just ask a question. Just convert that to a question. That's the simplest tweak that you can make, right?
That's very good.
It's a small step in the long journey that is in front of them, but that itself is very difficult for them to do because then it becomes the kind of the inquisition kind of questions where they are really drilling down deep and finding the answers that they are looking for, rather than just helping the team come up with those answers. So it is very, very difficult for them to do that. So the good thing about this coaching mentoring is that normally it goes in a trifecta. We always say, as consultants and coaches, Kumar and Mike, we always say training, mentoring, coaching in that order. Professionals, which is the this area of PSP, which is tough for many people, because training is not just talking from a slide set. It is also the day-to-day training that really impacts them, right? It is every day, especially if you're a leader. It is the everyday training on one-on-ones, which many people are not used to. They're always used to talking to a room. The one-on-one trainings become really important. The smaller, like workshop type environment where you are solutioning or helping the team come up with a solution to a specific problem becomes very important. So these are all skills to learn, whether that you be a scrum master, whether you be a product owner, whether you are a technical lead. Great example, technical lead helping with mobbing, learning helping the team learn how to mob program is a good training environment, right? We never think about it that way. But if those leaders can lead the way on those trainings, then that really helps the team move forward in small increments, not like the big 2-day trainings that we are used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think training and teaching as a whole is changing in the industry, and more to the idea of bite-sized learning or continuous learning, right? So teaching from this competency standpoint, the Scrum standpoint, is really about that continuous learning mindset, and practitioners in the Agile team should all be comfortable being teachers as well as learners themselves. So the learning, the knowledge can permeate throughout the team, right? And so as a practitioner, as you mentioned, right, Scrum Masters, product owners, leaders, tech leads, business analysts, whoever, it's about being comfortable asking questions so they can, improve their knowledge, but also imparting their wisdom, their knowledge from what they have learned, right? And in the more sort of leadership roles in Scrum, the Scrum Master, the product owner, as you mentioned, it's about really developing that skill, the teaching skill, along with coaching and mentoring, which are so closely intertwined. In fact, you could sort of move from a coaching conversation to a mentoring conversation to a teaching conversation all within a 10-minute span, if you're skilled enough at doing that, and really help the other person sort of learn and be able to apply what they learn almost immediately. So those are the 5 focus areas in this competency. There's so much more to be said about these, right? We just gave a sort of a high level overview of these focus areas, and I think that a lot of what we do at Agile Meridian, if you guys, I don't know if you agree or not, is we try to embody these focus areas in what we do, right? In our training and in the way we communicate within our company, and the way we coach and learn from our clients. Any parting thoughts before we call this short done or good enough?
I think this whole focus on the human aspect of it really goes towards the idea, which is really what we all believe in. It's one of the reasons we're together, is the idea of building competencies, right? Building competencies for individuals, which then translate into competencies for organizations. And the great thing about Scrum in this area is it focuses on the human elements that help to build the collaborative network and the collaborative framework to start building competencies, which that's true adaptable capabilities, right? That you have within an organization that goes much farther than just learning frameworks and techniques and things like this. So I think it just all lines up really well. I think that's why this has lasted for 20 years and will continue to last even longer, because of its applicability towards what is really needed today, and that's adaptable capabilities and doing it through the human element and not just through frameworks and design.
Yeah, and just like all the other like competencies in professional Scrum, these are also very continuous, right?
Mhm.
I mean, these focus areas, they never stop. You just keep going, right? The skills doesn't end with a Scrum Master certification, right, or a product owner certification. It just keeps going, and that's the tough part for most part of continuous learning.
Yeah, good points. All right, folks, I think that's a wrap for us in this edition of the Agile Shorts. Hope you join us in a couple of weeks when we'll bring another topic, likely another competency in the Scrum framework. And we'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, everyone.